Hello and welcome. My name is Arianna and I'm a former Republican. It's a direct statement from one of our guests today who holds back absolutely no punches in her new book, Right is Wrong. In fact, the full title will give you a better idea of what she's trying to say. Right is Wrong: How the Lunatic Fringe Hijacked America, Shredded the Constitution and Made Us All Less Safe, and What You Need to Know to End the Madness. In the hard-hitting book berating the influence of the neocons on the US government, author Arianna Huffington slams the media, most politicians and much of the American public for having its eyes shut. We're joined today by the well-known writer and who co-founded the online website and blog, The Huffington Post, where she remains editor-in-chief. Arianna Huffington argues that the American agenda has shifted from right versus left to right versus wrong. Well, also watching the political scene in the run-up to the US presidential election is our other guest, Pulitzer-prize winning writer Paul Starr, a professor of sociology at Princeton University who co-edits the American Prospect magazine. In his recent book, Freedom's Power: The True Force of Liberalism, he emphasizes that liberals cannot allow themselves to become merely defensive and oppositional. And don't forget, we take your calls on the show, and as we examine the state of US politics and what the people really know, we're asking the question, has the media let the American public down? You can reach us at the numbers at the bottom of your screen. Professor Paul Starr and Arianna Huffington, good to have you both here.
Great to be here.
And I'd like to start with a quote from your book, Ms. Huffington, Right is Wrong. Now, on the subject of media and the truth, you hold back no punches here, and this quote says, "Like Pontius Pilate washing his hands of responsibility, the Washington media want to pretend they are leaving the question of what is truth to the public, refusing to admit that sometimes there is even such a thing as truth." Now, in your honest opinion, how badly has the US media let down the US public?
Oh, tragically. Without the help of the US media, we would not be in Iraq right now. In the lead up to the war, I catalog all the ways in which the US media, including the New York Times, the paper of record, misled the American public with article after article in its front pages, giving misleading information about Saddam Hussein's supposed nuclear program, aluminum tubes, etc. And even after the war, the way they are reporting now on the progress of the war is incredibly misleading. Basically, the reporting is about Iraq being a quote-unquote mixed bag. And Iraq is an unqualified catastrophe. It's not a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag only in the sense that if you go to the doctor and the doctor tells you that you have a brain tumor, but your acne has improved, you would consider this a mixed bag of a diagnosis.
Well, I want to get Professor Paul Starr into the debate and ask, sir, how you regard the view that Ms. Huffington's put forward regarding the American media and how it's let down the public here.
In the run-up to the war, there's just no question. The media was disastrously wrong, and the American people and the people of Iraq have suffered tremendously as a result. Since the war, I'd give the media somewhat better grades. I think the New York Times and other papers have exposed a great deal of what went wrong. They've admitted a lot of their mistakes. But I think Arianna is also right that they haven't made altogether clear how fundamental a strategic blunder the Iraq war is, how deep a mistake it is. But really, the American public has caught on. The public overwhelmingly disapproves of the war, disapproves of George Bush, and is ready for a change. So I think the groundwork has been laid for the election.
And of course, talking of the election, it's changing. At least people are looking very carefully at the way things are going with this. And I wonder, in your book, Right is Wrong, there's a bit where you declare, "My name is Arianna and I'm a former Republican," which I quoted at the beginning there. And it explains you left the Republican Party a dozen years ago. But when, I know you now support Democrat Barack Obama, essentially. What made you so decisively leave the Republican side?
Well, first of all, let me just say that the Republican Party that I left is unrecognizable today because it has really since been really taken over by the lunatic fringe of the right, on issue after issue, Iraq, regulations, the economy in general. So my leaving the Republican Party had to do with my new understanding about the role of government, because I was always pro-choice, pro-gay rights, pro-gun control. So on those issues there was no shift. But my understanding changed in terms of the government being necessary to address the major social problems that we're facing.
In the book you also say, on the neoconservatives, or actually neoconservatives, you say the reign of Bush and Cheney and the rise of the neocons and the neocons, the Neanderthal conservatives, have alienated traditional conservative intellectuals. Now explain the neocons to me.
You know, the idea that these are Neanderthals came to me when I was watching a Republican primary debate, and the moderator asked the candidates to raise their hand if they did not believe in evolution, and 3 of them raised their hand. And that was to me a stunning moment, because it made me realize that the right are not just at war with progressives like myself, they're at war with facts. You know, they're at war with science, they're at war with truth, and that's why they're so dangerous, and that's why I think they should more appropriately be called neocons.
Professor Starr, you know, your book Freedom's Power, The True Force of Liberalism, obviously touches on where the liberal stance is in America, but I wonder if you could explain for a lot of our viewers who don't understand this, why the word liberal is considered so negatively by parts of American society.
Well, you know, I think there has been some kind of a taint that attaches to the word liberal ever since the 1960s, but really the word is not so important. Call it progressive, call it whatever you want. The basic politics, however, that liberals represent today, and I would include both Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton as liberals, that political view is, in fact, I think, a majority view in this country. And so it's really not a matter of a word. It's a matter of underlying ideas that I think have tremendously wide support.
Well, Professor, if I could put an email we got from New York to you on this issue of liberalism and liberals, I guess. Liberal obsession with legalized abortion, gay rights and minority issues have alienated the majority of voters in this country, and yet you call on the liberals to build a majority and connect to a new generation. Get real. Now, I wonder when you know, why people feel this way. What is it that's not allowed someone like Jen wrote in from New York to connect with you and your views?
Yes, well, I think the obsessions that he's talking about are really much more the obsessions of conservatives in attacking liberals. Those are not the central concerns that liberalism represents today in terms of the economy, in terms of foreign policy. I think you know, conservatives would love to get the debate onto that kind of a level, but that's not really where the country is.
Let's get a caller in from here in the USA. But Tim is on the line. Tim, what would you like to ask?
Yeah, I was going to add a question for Arianna.
Mm-hmm.
Since media, whoever runs the media runs the country, I'm talking about U.S., do we have any group or any type of people or anybody that controls the media? I mean, that checks the media.
All right, checks and balances, yeah.
Well, yes, we actually do. We have the amazing growth of the blogosphere, of online media. The Huffington Post is one of them, but Talking Points Memo, Daily Kos, and also, of course, much more traditional magazines like the American Prospect that Paul represents. You know, have been doing a great job at being watchdogs for the media. The rise of the blogosphere has contributed something very important because it's 24/7 checking on the media. Just to give you an example, the ABC debate, the George Stephanopoulos, Charlie Gibson questioning that aroused so much opposition, it was instant because the feeling was that they had internalized the messaging of the right, you know, equating patriotism with wearing or not wearing a flag pin on your lapel, obsessing over Reverend Right. You know, Paul was absolutely right. The issues that were raised about abortion, etc., are not obsessions of liberals or progressives. They're obsessions of the right.
We have on the line from Paris, Anwar. Thanks for joining us from France. There, Anwar, what would you like to ask?
Thank you, Riz. Hi, Riz, and hi, everyone. My question is, as far as I realized, your guest is they are blaming the media. Media is responsible or provoked the war in Iraq. I am completely disagree with your guest. I think media has been victim or a scapegoat. It's not media provoked that. It could be somebody else or something else, but media probably partially responsible, probably.
Okay.
But it's something or somebody else.
Well, let's get Professor Starr's view on this. I mean, Anwar sees the media more as a victim than a perpetrator of some of the problems, as Ms. Huffington has said.
Well, I wouldn't call the media a victim. I think that's a strange way to look at it. But I do think when we're talking about the difficulties that mistakes in the media have caused, we're really very specifically talking about the errors in reporting about Iraq, There are certainly other issues. You know, there are complaints from both the right and the left about bias in the media, and reporters have reason often to feel that if they're getting criticized from both directions, then they must be doing something right. I understand that. But there are a lot of specific questions which the American public doesn't have good enough information about. I think Arianna was right to bring up that debate where Charlie Gibson and George Stephanopoulos were completely distracted by these side issues and failed to ask the central questions that people are concerned about. It's striking, for example, that during these presidential debates, reporters have almost never asked about the basic questions about energy and the environment, which are now so fundamentally important, not just in terms of gas prices today, but in terms of the long-run survival of our civilization.
We have, just before we take a short break, I want to get a quote in from your book, Arianna Huffington, and it's on media control. And I've summed it up a little bit. It says, the media's willingness to allow the administration to control its message is part of what got us into this disastrous war. It would be a lot harder for the administration to play games with other people's lives if the media refused to go along. Now, do you believe it really is the role of the media to question authority, or to actually just present the facts and figures which allow the public to be able to question in an informed way?
Well, absolutely. Their job is to question authority based on facts and figures, not on a matter of opinion. The problem is that they're not doing that, and I think they are continuing not to do that. On Iraq, they're not telling the truth to the American public, and we had confirmation of that with the Pentagon so-called military analysts proceeding to pass disinformation onto the American people based on what the Pentagon wanted the people to hear.
We're going to take a very short break here, so Arianna Huffington and Paul Starr, don't go away. We'll be back with more in just a moment.